Hello, and thank you for joining us today to learn more about the power of attorney, how to authorize the department to disclose tax information, and how to appoint a representative on tax matters using Arizona Form 285 series. As we get started, I'm going to share with you 6 slides that contain our statutory responsibilities as a state agency. While the department may aid in the legislative process of developing technically sound and administratively feasible policies, the mandate to do so comes from the legislature and is signed into law by the governor. The department's authority is outlined in Titles 42 and 43 of the Arizona Revised Statutes. I will not read each slide, but rather I will click through them slowly so that you are able to read them on your own. Here at the Arizona Department of Revenue, it is our mission to serve taxpayers. How can you be sure to be informed of news and updates? You can now subscribe to receive texts or emails on these latest news and updates at azdor.gov. This box should populate when you log on to our webpage. By entering your email address or phone number in the space provided, you can receive updates on general information, filing reminders, and any other important information and reminders that you choose. If the pop-up box does not show when you log on to azdor.gov, you can still access the GovDelivery subscription by scrolling to the bottom of the homepage and clicking on the Subscribe for Updates link. Arizona taxpayers now have another option when seeking information about state taxes, the Transaction Privilege Tax Program, and answers to a variety of general knowledge questions. This can be done by utilizing our live chat feature available at both aztaxes.gov and azdor.gov. This pop-up application provides customers with answers to general questions and offers navigational guidance. Taxpayer privacy is paramount to the Department of Revenue. Therefore, answers to specific taxpayer information will not be addressed through the website live chat feature. Customers seeking information on particular private taxpayer matters or confidential account information will be directed to the ADOR Service Department. ADOR live chat is available for inquiries Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Let's begin. In today's presentation, we will begin with a knowledge pre-check, followed by an introduction to disclosure and representation authorization, the types of disclosure and representation authorization forms, commonly referred to as power of attorney forms, how to complete a Form 285, including withdrawal and revocation, common mistakes and how to avoid them, concluding with a knowledge post-check and available resources. Moving on to our knowledge pre-check. On the next slide, you will see a series of statements. Simply think to yourself whether each statement is true or false. Statement 1. The Arizona Department of Revenue, by law, must protect a taxpayer's confidential information. Therefore, the department cannot disclose such information to another person unless the taxpayer authorizes the disclosure. Is this true or false? Statement 2. When a taxpayer seeks to appoint an individual to act on their behalf on tax matters with the department, the taxpayer may notify the department in writing. Is this statement true or false? And statement number 3, the department has designed the Form 285 series to provide taxpayers with a way to notify the department when they wish to A, authorize the disclosure of their information to a third party, and or B, authorize an individual to represent them in resolving tax matters with the department. Is this true or false? All of these statements are true. Now let's move on to our introduction. Questions that we will be answering as we navigate through today's presentation are 1. What is the difference between disclosure and representation authorization? 2. What is the Form 285? 3. When is a power of attorney needed? 4. To whom can the department disclose a taxpayer's confidential tax information? 5. What information can be disclosed? And 6. For how long are power of attorneys valid? So let's begin with that first question. What's the difference between disclosure and representation authorization? Well, disclosure authorization is when a taxpayer authorizes the department to simply disclose the taxpayer's confidential tax information to specific individuals, meaning this allows that appointee the power to simply speak on tax matters with an agent here at the Department of Revenue. Now, how does that differ from representation authorization? Well, representation authorization is when a taxpayer appoints an individual to represent or act for the taxpayer before the department on these specific tax matters. So what that means is when an appointee has the representation authorization, they are able to act on behalf of the taxpayer versus simply disclosure authorization, which is allowing the department to disclose confidential information to the appointee. Now, what is Form 285? The department has designed a series of forms numbered 285 that taxpayers can use to authorize the department to disclose or work with appointed individuals on the taxpayer's information in tax matters. There are a number of different 285 forms available, so it's extremely important that you look through each form and choose the one that best suits your needs. Some of these 285 forms authorize disclosure only, while others can be used to authorize both disclosure and representation. So take a look at each form and choose the one that best suits your needs. What is a power of attorney or POA form? Well, to first answer this question, we need to define what a power of attorney is. A power of attorney in the context of the Arizona Department of Revenue is a written authorization to represent or act on another's behalf. The authority outlined in the power of attorney can be fairly broad or in some cases restrictive, limiting the appointee to very specific duties. Appointees named in the powers of attorney are legally able to make decision on the principal's behalf. The appointee is limited again to what is in the POA agreement and cannot do anything not specified under the power of attorney. So the power of attorney form is the form that is used by the Arizona Department of Revenue to name these different individuals that can represent a taxpayer. A power of attorney is needed anytime a taxpayer wishes for anyone other than themselves to receive confidential information from or perform acts required by the Arizona Department of Revenue. The appointee could include, but is not limited to, a property management company hired by a property owner, an accountant or an enrolled agent hired by a taxpayer, an attorney hired by a taxpayer, or even a finance or office manager that's hired by a business. All of these are valid examples of appointees. So anytime a taxpayer wishes for anyone other than themselves to act or receive confidential information from the Department of Revenue, they must have a valid power of attorney on file. POAs can cover any number of past periods. However, for practical matters, the department can only enter POAs for up to 4 years in the future. So as an example, say I started a business in the year 2010. In 2021, I hired a new accountant to help me file my transaction privilege tax return. When I set up my power of attorney for my accountant, I can have that power of attorney valid from the day that I started my business up to 4 years in the future from the current date. So if we're in 2021, that power of attorney for my new accountant would cover from when I started my business in 2010 to 2025. Disclosure and Representation Authorization, the Form 285 series. We're now going to take a look at the different forms and their different uses. Like has been previously mentioned, the department has created various forms for taxpayers to use in authorizing the disclosure of confidential tax information and appointing representation. Again, each form is intended to be used in specific situations, and some forms authorize only disclosure of information, while others authorize an appointee to take action on behalf of a taxpayer. The most all-encompassing POA form is Form 285, the General Disclosure Representation Authorization Form. Any type of taxpayer may file a Form 285. So this includes an individuals that file joint returns, a sole proprietorship, a corporation or a limited liability company, a partnership, estate, or trust, a government agency, or any other organization, association, or group that would like someone other than themselves to receive confidential information from or perform acts required by the Arizona Department of Revenue. This is the Form 285, the General Disclosure Representation Authorization Form. The purpose of this form is to authorize the disclosure of taxpayer information, grant additional powers, and even provide a full power of attorney to the appointee listed on the form. It is the most common 285 form used, as it does allow the taxpayer to provide a full power of attorney. This is the Form 285I, Individual Income Tax Disclosure or Representation Authorization Form. As the name suggests, the 285I form is used by individual taxpayers in relation to their own income tax matters. This form is the 285B, Disclosure Authorization Form. Form 285B is a disclosure-only form. This form does not authorize an appointee to perform acts on behalf of the taxpayer. Rather, it authorizes the department to release confidential information to the designated appointee. Form 285C is used by corporations only. This form is a unique form in the series because it does not actually authorize disclosure or authorize any acts to be performed on behalf of the taxpayer. What it does is that it enables an individual to certify to the department that he or she is authorized by a taxpayer to receive that confidential information, or to certify that he is an authorized representative of the taxpayer. Form 285P, Centrally Valued Property Disclosure Representation Authorization Form, is used to enable a taxpayer to designate an appointee to whom the department can release confidential information concerning the taxpayer's centrally valued property. Centrally valued property tax is a tax on large properties. Examples could include mills, mines, pipelines, flight property owned by airline companies, operating property of railroad companies, and even property owned by telecommunication companies. A note about this form: while it was stated previously that a POA can cover any number of years in the past up to 4 years in the future, Arizona Revised Statute 42-16001 limits the period of representation to 1 year for a property tax agent registered with the Arizona State Board of Appraisal as a taxpayer's appointee. Form 285 PMC, Residential Rental Property Disclosure Authorization Form, is to be used by property owners only. Form 285 PMC can be used only by property owners who own residential rental property in Arizona, hired a property management company or PMC to file the transaction privilege and use tax return for the rental property business, authorize an employee of the PMC to communicate with the Arizona Department of Revenue on their behalf regarding the TPT on their rental property, and manage the TPT license, file tax returns, pay taxes online, and if needed, assign delegates and file penalty abatement requests. Form 821, Withholding Tax Information Authorization, is used to authorize any individual, corporation, firm, organization, or partnership to inspect and/or receive confidential Arizona withholding tax information for the years or periods indicated on the form. If a taxpayer wants an individual to inspect and/or receive information for tax types other than withholding, or to perform other acts on the taxpayer's behalf, the taxpayer may not use Form 821, but should instead use Arizona Form 285. This is an example of Form 821 PSC, Withholding Tax Payroll Service Company Authorization. A taxpayer may use Form 821 PSC to authorize any individual, corporation, firm, organization, or partnership to sign returns, file returns, make payments, inspect and receive confidential Arizona withholding tax information, beginning with the withholding tax period listed on the form until either 4 years after the authorization is received by the department or the authorization is revoked, whichever occurs first. If a taxpayer wants an individual to inspect and/or receive information for tax types other than withholding, the taxpayer may not use Form 821. Rather, they should use Form 285. Let's go ahead and look at an example. An auditor at the department sent out an audit notice to Company A. Charles, Company A's Vice President of Operations, calls the department to speak with the auditor. The auditor has never spoken to Charles, but has had several conversations with Dennis, Company A's president. Charles is not one of the specific officers listed in the statutory definition. So question: what needs to be done in order to allow the Arizona Department of Revenue auditor to discuss confidential tax information with Charles? Well, because a VP of Operations is not a principal officer as defined in Arizona Revised Statute Section 42-2003A2, Charles would need to submit a Form 285 signed by a principal officer that authorizes the department to disclose confidential information to him. Next, let's look at how to complete a Form 285. Before we discuss how to complete Form 285, we would like to point out that these directions are for the actual Form 285. Other forms in the series will be slightly different in the way in which they are completed. Section 1. Enter the taxpayer's name, address, and daytime phone number on the lines provided. In the section to the right, indicate the applicable identification number. Section 2. Enter the name of the person or the appointee you are appointing to be authorized to receive confidential information and/or represent the taxpayer. In the section to the right, indicate the applicable identification number. This section is extremely important as this is the number that the department will use to verify the appointee's identity when they call into the department. This ID number is not limited to the list here. It can be any number selected by the appointee, as long as he or she will remember that number when calling in. Section 3. Specify the tax type and tax year for which the appointee is authorized to receive confidential information and/or represent the taxpayer. If either income tax or TPT is selected, indicate the type of return or ownership. Section 4. At minimum, this authorization form authorizes the department to release taxpayers' confidential information to the appointee. If additional authorizations are desired, read the options and select the appropriate box. Section 5. If you wish to authorize a full power of attorney, do not mark any boxes in Section 4. Rather, mark the box next to Section 5 and specify if there are any limitations. Section 6. If you wish to revoke previous authorizations, mark the box in Section 6. If there are any exceptions, list those in the applicable space. Section 7. Corporations and subsidiaries. Read the information contained in this section. If you wish to include all controlled subsidiaries or specific subsidiaries, please make the appropriate selections. Section 8. Signature of the taxpayer. Section 9. Declaration of appointee. When an appointee is authorized to perform additional acts or is granted a power of attorney, that appointee must sign Section 9. Without that signature, an appointee will only be able to receive confidential information. Nothing more. For more information on how to properly complete a power of attorney form, view the General Tax Procedure 18-1 available on the Department's website at azdor.gov. Once completed, the Arizona Department of Revenue offers 3 convenient options to submit the form. Option 1. Send a secured email with the completed form attached to poa@azdor.gov. Option 2. Fax the completed form to 602-716-6008. Or Option 3. Mail the original or photocopy of the completed form to Taxpayer Information and Assistance, Arizona Department of Revenue, P.O. Box 29086, Phoenix, Arizona 85038. To process a power of attorney form, there is a minimum amount of information that can be accepted by the department. From the taxpayer, the department requires the taxpayer's full legal name, address, phone number, and taxpayer identification number, for example, a Social Security number or a TPT license number, as well as his or her signature and the date of execution. From the appointee, the department requires the appointee's full legal name, address, phone number, identification number, such as a bar license number, CPA license number, enrolled agent number, Social Security number, or any other unique ID, and the appointee's signature on the declaration page. The signature of an appointee on this page serves as an acknowledgement by that person that he or she complies with Rule 31 of the Arizona Supreme Court. The department must also note the tax types and tax years for which the authorization is valid. The entity type must also be included, meaning the taxpayer must state if this form is for a corporation, partnership, LLC, etc. The form must contain a clear statement indicating the scope or specific authority being given to the appointee, or whether a full power of attorney is being granted. And if any prior authorizations are being revoked, a written statement must also be included. Now let's cover who can sign the power of attorney form. If the power of attorney form is covering an individual taxpayer, it is that individual who must sign the form. If the form is being submitted on behalf of a sole proprietorship business, it is the individual owner of the business that must sign the form. If the form is being submitted on behalf of a corporation, the corporate officer who has the authority to bind the taxpayer on state tax matters must sign the power of attorney form. If the form is being submitted on behalf of a partnership, any general partner of the partnership or designee of the general partner may sign the form. If the power of attorney form is being submitted on behalf of a member-managed LLC, a member of that member-managed LLC may sign the form. If it's being submitted on behalf of a manager-managed LLC, the manager of that manager-managed LLC must sign the form. If the power of attorney form is being submitted on behalf of an estate, it is the personal representative who should sign the form. If submitted on behalf of a trust, any trustee may sign the form. There may come a point in time when the appointee no longer wishes to serve as the taxpayer's appointee. If this occurs, he or she can withdraw his or her services. An appointee may decide to withdraw from representation when a power of attorney has been filed by submitting a written statement to the department. This statement must be signed and dated by the appointee with the name and address of the taxpayer, as well as the tax matters from which the appointee is withdrawing. There may also come a time when a taxpayer decides that he or she may no longer wish to be represented by the appointee. If this happens, the taxpayer may revoke any previously granted authorizations. This can be done by making the appropriate selection on the Form 285 and submitting it to the department. This can also be done by filing a statement of revocation with the department or by submitting a copy of the original form with the word revoked written across the top with a signature and a date of the taxpayer. Let's go ahead and take another look at an example. So Form 285 is received by the department. Sections 1, 2, and 3 are completed. In Section 3, the taxpayer specified tax matters as individual income from tax year 2004 to 2010. None of the boxes in either section authorizing additional acts, Section 4, or the section authorizing a full power of attorney, Section 5, are checked. The Form 285 is signed and dated by both the taxpayer and the appointee. So question, is the appointee listed on the form able to legally receive the taxpayer's confidential tax information for the year cited? Well, as a result of the information that was completed, the department may disclose the taxpayer's information to the appointee. However, the taxpayer cannot have that appointee represent him or her before the department. Now let's talk about some common mistakes and how to avoid them. These are some common errors we see when processing Form 285 series. The identification number for the appointee was not provided. Remember, this is how the department will verify the appointee's identity before releasing any confidential information. This number must be a number that the appointee will remember, and it must be included on the form before being submitted to the department. Another common mistake is that the signature of the owner or taxpayer was not included. If an owner or taxpayer signature was not provided, the form simply can't be processed. A signature indicates that the owner or taxpayer is authorizing the appointee listed on the form to receive confidential information from or perform acts required by the department. Along those same lines, another error seen is that the appointee's signature is missing. This signature is also important because it tells the department that the appointee is accepting the authorizations being given by the taxpayer. Lastly, we cannot process a POA when no tax type or tax year was selected. The department needs to know to what information the appointee should have access. Say, for instance, the taxpayer has a TPT account with the department as well as his or her individual income tax account. If no tax type or tax year was selected, the department doesn't know if the appointee should have access to the TPT information, the individual income information, or both. So the tax type and tax year must be selected. If a Form 285 does not include all of the required information, the appointee may be able to supply the information missing depending upon what it is. If the form is missing the taxpayer's signature, the form is invalid and an entirely new form must be submitted. Other problems on the form may be corrected by changing, initialing, and then dating each change. Missing information relating to the appointee may be supplied and resubmitted by the appointee themselves. And we've now reached the end of our Power of Attorney presentation, so let's go ahead and take a look at our knowledge PostCheck. Again, on the screen in front of you are 3 statements. As I read aloud each statement, simply think to yourself whether the statement is true or false. Statement 1. The Arizona Department of Revenue, by law, must protect a taxpayer's confidential information. Therefore, the department cannot disclose such information to another person unless the taxpayer authorizes the disclosure. Is this true or false? Statement 2. When a taxpayer seeks to appoint an individual to act on their behalf on tax matters with the department, the taxpayer may notify the department in writing. Is this statement true or false? And statement number 3, the department has designed the Form 285 series to provide taxpayers with a way to notify the department when they wish to A, authorize the disclosure of their information to a third party, and or B, authorize an individual to represent them in resolving tax matters with the department. Is this true or false? All of these statements are true. And on the next slide, we'll review some available resources. Visit aztaxes.gov to enroll to file and pay online. You can also use aztaxes.gov to verify a TPT license number, check the due date calendar, and use the AZ Tax Rate Lookup tool. Visit azdor.gov for information on starting a new business, to review publications and procedures, to download and print forms, view the tax rate tables, and see information in regards to unclaimed property. For more information, please review our tutorial titled Learn How to Complete the Arizona Form 285 General Disclosure Representation Authorization Form, available through our Media Center on azdor.gov. In this tutorial, you'll see a step-by-step guide on what information is required for the Arizona Form 285. If you're interested in other online tutorials, workshops, or would like to request a speaker, please visit www.azdor.gov/taxpayer-education. Thank you for your time today.